Welcome to Washington in Focus Daily. It is Tuesday, July 7th, 2026. I'm Carlene Johnson, the Center Square Washington's state government reporter. And in today's episode, it sounds like, from what we're hearing from the Secretary of State's office, that it will be at least another couple of weeks, if not longer, before we find out if the initiative aimed at repealing Washington's new income tax is in fact certified for the November ballot. Seems like they turned in enough signatures to get it qualified, but it's not official until it's official from the Secretary of State. And I was informed today it will be 2 to 3 weeks from the time of turn in before we get confirmation of that certification. But we have some more of the speeches that were given and some of the others that I interviewed at the turn in event in Tumwater at the Secretary of State's office last Thursday. We'll share that with you in today's episode. Now, the Republican National Committee is putting a great deal of attention on a Washington congressional race. This is in Southwest Washington's District 3. The incumbent there is Democrat Marie Gluesenkamp Perez. She is being challenged by the Senate Minority Lead here in Olympia, Senator John Braun, who currently represents the Centralia area. Putting a lot of attention on that because they believe, in fact, she is vulnerable and that Republicans can gain that seat back. So pressure's increasing to find out, where does she come down on the income tax? We're trying to find out. We'll tell you what the latest is from her campaign. And then an ex-con, sober, former drug addict, shares some of her insights into a program that she put together that's going into the prisons to make sure that by the time those that are incarcerated are released, they are on a path to never go back behind bars again. We're talking about Ginny Burton. If you're not familiar with her, I'm going to share part of an interview I did with her this morning and share a little bit about her campaign. She plans to walk more than 300 miles later this month in hopes of raising some money and awareness for this very important program. All right, so Let's Go Washington last Thursday turned in boxes and boxes, dozens of them. Those boxes contained petitions for folks that had signed on for a repeal of Washington's new income tax, the 9.9% tax on income above $1 million or combined household income in excess of $1 million. We won't find out if, in fact, they've got enough valid voter signatures to get qualified for the November ballot for about another 2.5 weeks, it sounds like, according to what I'm hearing from the Secretary of State's office. They only need 308,911 valid voter signatures to qualify. So here during that event last Thursday is Let's Go Washington's founder, Brian Haywood.
Over 500,000 people took the time out of their day to sign this initiative to get it on the ballot. I have a friend who came up to me. He said, "Brian, I'm a Democrat socialist." And you'd go, "Oh, Brian, that's weird that you have a friend like that." But I do. And we're good friends. But he said, "There's no way I'm going to vote for this, but give me one of the sheets and I'll sign it." So there's at least one Democrat socialist that signed this because he believed in the process of giving people an opportunity to vote. God bless America. God bless Washington State. Thank you for gathering the signatures.
So with this initiative 645, or it's technically IP 26, Initiative to the People for the Year 2026, 645, it seems with more than 500,000 signatures, they're going to have enough even to account for folks who may have inadvertently signed twice, or they're not a registered voter and they shouldn't have signed those petitions. But if in fact it is certified, then it's going to be on the November ballot. It will be one of three Let's Go Washington initiatives on the November ballot. We have two that are already qualified. Those concern protection of girls in sports and keeping boys out of girls' locker rooms and bathrooms, and the restoration of parental rights. So you get to know what's happening with your child at school. If your child is gender confused and seeking consult from the school, they have to tell you. They can't keep it a secret. So just ahead of that event, again, last Thursday in Tumwater, had a chance to speak to GOP Chairman Jim Walsh, who represents Aberdeen. about the potential repeal of the income tax, and why this is so important to his constituents.
The Washington Democrats are in desperate trouble. They've been hijacked by radical, irrational leftists. I mean, there's no other way to say it. They're communists, they're collectivists, and they're pushing a Vladimir Lenin, Joseph Stalin, Pol Pot, Saul Alinsky agenda. They use words like reparations. They don't even know what that means. And it's one of the ironies that they demand reparations to people, but at the same time, they want to open the borders to open immigration. It is inherently and internally inconsistent. And there were sections of that platform that are blatantly anti Semitic, blaming Israel for the violence in the Middle East, saying they brought it on themselves, that they were attacked by terrorists. It's crazy stuff. And it's a testament to how that party has been commandeered by the communists.
And I want to share a bit of one of the folks who spoke at the event in Tumwater last Thursday, a gentleman I've spoken with before and shared on our episodes of Washington in Focus Daily, and that is Zach Abraham, Principal and Chief Investment Officer at Bulwark Capital. He's joined the fight against the income tax, may or may not end up relocating if it doesn't get repealed, but this is part of what he told the crowd at that event last week.
Was if you want to do this, there's a legal way about going about doing it. You can amend the Constitution. You can uphold the rule of law. But the way you're doing it is you're fracturing a social contract, right? Meaning if you do this, how do I trust you not to do anything else, right? So one of the things I think we all need to come together on and realize here is that this is a last stand. I'm a Washington kid, born and raised, right? Grew up in Gig Harbor. My wife and family and I live down there now. And we don't want to leave. I don't want to go anywhere. And we're going to stand here and fight it to the end, even if the state decides that they don't like what I said in an op-ed and audits me out of nowhere. And there's another thing that I've learned in this process so far is that the only way they get away with doing things like this is fear, right? It's fear of oppression. So you know the first thing I did when I got that audit notice? I called Brandy and I said, Brandy Cruz, and I said, hey, let's hop on and do an episode. We'll show everybody this audit notice, right? We're not going to run from it. We're not going to hide. You might take some money from me. Maybe you'll cause a problem. Maybe you'll hit me with some kind of, who knows what they can do. But they've been able to get a lot of us to be quiet for a long time for fear that we'd be targeted. Well, guess what? Go ahead and target all you want. I've had enough, right? And we cannot take this stuff lying down, right? It is a violation. Like I said, it's a violation of our constitutional rights. And if this stands, we're all smoked.
Now, Zach Abraham previously told me he's in it to stay now and fight the fight. He doesn't want to leave the state. He loves living here. He's raising kids here and has been here for many, many years. But if, in fact, the income tax is upheld or if voters don't repeal it and or the courts decide that they believe it's legal and not against the Washington state constitution, he's already been making some plans to potentially relocate to Arizona or Idaho, and has told me he knows a lot of other wealthy Washingtonians who are making the same plans. Now, speaking of the income tax, it has been tough to find out where one member of Congress who represents a district here in Washington state stands on the income tax. We're talking about District 3 Congresswoman Democrat Marie Gluesenkamp Perez. The Republican National Committee believes that that district is very much up for grabs and that Republicans could gain back that seat in the House. They believe that Senator John Braun, Republican of Centralia, current House minority lead, Senate minority lead, has the potential to regain that seat. He's been doing very well in recent polls. He, of course, is strongly opposed to Washington's new income tax. And they believe the fact that Marie Gluesenkamp Perez is unwilling to say publicly where she comes down on this makes her even more vulnerable. Here's part of my conversation with Senator John Braun.
Yeah, in spite of all her claims to be moderate, she has been pro-tax in every aspect of her voting in Washington, D.C. As recently as last year, she voted against the largest tax reduction in our country's history. She has been unapologetic for that. She talks a good game when she talks about affordability, but on the issues that really matter, the issues that cost individual taxpayers, individual voters more money in their daily lives, she's been absolutely wrong on the issues. And in this case, she doesn't want to say anything because she won't buck a very far left, very progressive Democratic Party.
So Senator Braun referenced Marie Gluesenkamp Perez sort of dodging questions and about the income tax. And I've reached out, I should say, to her campaign on multiple occasions, gone back and forth with her campaign contacts. Sometimes they say, "What's your deadline?" The next day, I might get, "Have you run that story yet?" Or, "We're working hard to nail down a time she's available." This has gone on for weeks now. And so I'm going to go ahead today and publish my article without a response specifically from the sitting Congresswoman. But the RNC pointed me to some information. Basically, we know where she comes down on the income tax because she's an incumbent and has endorsed Washington's Democratic basically platform, their agenda priorities, and therefore endorsed taxes on the wealthy. Um, she was one of a select few who drafted the party's platform, which called for a fair and just tax system for all, and specifically to quote, tax the highest incomes. So an RNC spokesman emailed this to me. Marie Gluesenkamp Perez voted for an income tax and is now desperately trying to hide her pro-tax record. Gluesenkamp Perez is a total phony, a spoiled Portland rich kid whose entire persona is completely fabricated to hide her far left beliefs. And that was from an RNC spokesman. So again, I have reached out to her campaign and repeatedly given her opportunities to, talk to us about where she's at, or even just talk to us about the campaign and the fact she's trailing right now in some of the recent polling. If they decide to give us some time and grant an interview, we, of course, will share that with you on a future episode of Washington in Focus Daily. Now, finally, I have to tell you, this is one of my favorite people that I've met probably in the last 5 years of my life. If you're not familiar with who this is, I'm glad you're going to be watching today because this is Ginny Burton, formerly drug addicted, multiple felony convictions, served, I think she said, 3 prison terms, um, had a really rough start in life, like so many people who end up on that path and end up behind bars themselves, had a rough upbringing. Maybe a family member themselves was incarcerated or drug addicted. And it seems like it's a really difficult thing to shake if you don't have the right influence or somebody to kind of yank you out of that. For her, it took that 3rd prison sentence and time behind bars where she finally said, enough. I'm going to clean myself up. I'm going to turn my life around. I'm going to get educated. And that's what she did while she was still behind bars. And once out, she went to the University of Washington to get her law degree. And she's now building something inside the Washington Department of Corrections. They see it's working. And she's specifically at the Forks Correctional Facility, where she has an ongoing program working with incarcerated men while they're still behind bars. And her success rate cannot be refuted, really. It is an abstinence based reentry program run by someone who came from inside the population it serves, focused, she says, entirely on self sufficiency and staying out of prison for good. Here is part of my conversation today with Ginny Burton, talking about how everything changed for her after one decision that she made in her life.
Coming out of all of that at the age of 40, the last time I was facing a prison sentence, I made the decision to change my own life. And then I developed a process to infiltrate the system, to influence the lives of the people who are just like me. And I have given my blood, sweat, and tears to perpetuate that kind of intervention, and it has been very effective in the lives of the people that I serve. I'm inside of the Department of Corrections, and out of the 55 people who have been released, which is currently a small sample size, but it's how you get up a mountain, right? One step at a time, one person at a time. Only one of our guys has reoffended. The over 87% are practicing abstinence-based recovery. That means no medication-assisted treatment, no dependence on social services, because they've learned to become the strongest version of themselves. They practice service, so they give of their time freely. They're educated, they're employed, they're reunifying with their kids, they're all stably housed, and that's really what I think we perceive that systems are supposed to do.
So, out of 170 incarcerated men who have gone through her program to basically get a complete shift of what's possible in their life, 55 of those men have been released, and all but one are still on a successful path. And I would argue, even the one who ended up back behind bars reached back out again to Ginny and said, I screwed up. Used again. I'm back behind bars. I want back in your program. And she said, now this man, the one failure of the 55 graduates, is actually going to be a huge advocate while still behind bars to get others enrolled in the program. So look at this from the Out Impact website, and it's out-UT. So O-UT, their website, which you just heard Ginny detailing. 54 of 55 released graduates have not returned to prison. If they remain out for 3 years, that represents $10.3 million in avoided incarceration costs at Washington State's documented rate of $63,626 per person per year. The total program cost to serve all 55 people was only $247,500. Costs about $4,500 to put these gentlemen through a 6-month program, and then some of the continuing support services once they are, out of prison. But they're all housed, they're all clean, they're all employed. Many of them back with the children that they ended up abandoning through their oftentimes, drug addiction and then life of crime and eventually incarceration. Again, $4,500 versus the cost of incarcerating someone at more than $63,000 might be worth the state spending a little bit more time looking into this kind of a success rate. But it was back in June of last year, so just over a year ago, Ginny's program lost a contract and then transitioned. That was through the Department of Corrections, and they transitioned to a 501c3. But now she's on a mission that she'll literally start walking out later this month. The goal is to raise $250,000 over the second half of this month, if you will. She's going to set out on July the 19th at Cedar Falls Trailhead in North Bend and finish up July 31st at Riverfront Park in Spokane. So it's more than 300 miles to bring attention to this. She's hoping to get donations, whether it's per mile. She's got some folks that have already signed up to walk certain, stretches, certain days of that. She told me today she's got 2 new pairs of tennis shoes that she's now working to sort of break in, if you will. This is the second time she's done something like this after the death of her son, who died of a fentanyl overdose after being released from prison. She set out on one of these walks. So again, this goal is to raise the $250,000. Why? Well, because that amount is what it costs to put these 55 graduates through the program and into successful release. And that's not to pay her. She hasn't taken an income for over a year now, been operating off of some donations from folks who believe in what she's doing. But I'm going to share a little bit more about her in the days and weeks to come, leading up to when she ventures out on that walk, starting again July 19th at Cedar Falls Trailhead in North Bend. She welcomes even critics. She says, come with me, walk with me. Tell me why you think I'm crazy and why it doesn't work and why you would never believe an ex-con or an ex-drug addict. She's like, come along and join me on this mission. So I would encourage you to check out the website at outimpact.org/walk. So outimpact.org/walk. And yeah, check out her story. It's remarkable. She has some videos up on that website too of some of the men who have successfully completed the program and really transformed their lives at literally a tiny fraction of the cost what we're spending to incarcerate people and not invest in them to really turn their lives around. So that is a wrap on today's episode of Washington in Focus Daily for this Tuesday, July the 7th. I hope you enjoyed the show and join us again on Wednesday. Have a great day.